Hello and welcome everyone to the Common Theory. As you can tell, Gator's not here today. Unfortunately, he has some personal stuff to take care of before the hurricane hits. But with that, I'm here today, and we're presented here with our guest, Izlain. Izlain, how you doing, man?
I'm good. What's up?
How was your weekend?
I don't have weekends. Technically, today is my Friday, and I'm off the next 2 days normally, which is why this is my stream day, because it's like my Friday. I can have some beers, stream, chill, hang out, and then, not have to worry about doing shit the next day. Unfortunately, we've been a little shorthanded at work lately. Some people have quit, left, whatever. We're supposed to be getting some new recruits pretty quickly, but as such, they've asked some of us that are in management to come in on and work a sixth day, which is time and a half for the whole time, which is, cha-ching, but at the same time.
Yeah, but the extra workload does.
I'm not looking forward to getting up in the morning, so I can't. And then you guys hit me up, and I was like, well, fuck, I was going to eat dinner and head towards bed, but, squeeze this in. It'll be fine.
Thank you so much.
You hit me up with a topic that I actually want to talk about, so it worked out.
So, and Rohan, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Yeah, it was pretty chill. We did some apple picking. It's fall's in full swing up in the New York, New Jersey area.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Why?
The weather's been amazing.
It's been 100 degrees all week. This is terrible.
Oh, oof.
I wish. I want fall weather. It's October. Go home and globe. You're drunk. This is bullshit.
Jesus.
And then
that's why everyone goes to the Northeast or the Pacific Northwest for autumn.
Oh, I intend on moving up north at some point, but just not currently.
Oh, if you ever come to the Northeast, hit me up.
It's going to be Northwest because I'm already over here.
Yeah,
but,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But it
does make a lot more sense.
It's been good. I'm gearing up to go to Chicago this weekend. Should be a fun time.
Yeah. So when you're doing apple picking, did they give you the whole speech about the difference between apple juice and apple cider?
I feel like if you grow up around here, that's an expectation. You should fucking know if you grew up in the New York, New Jersey, sort of tri-state area. We get apple cider all year round for the most part up here. It's in every.
Yeah, I feel bad because I totally forgot about this. Because I totally forget the actual quote that Ned Flanders says. That's why. But
yeah, you do get some really good hard cider up here too. The orchards now also do hard cider brewing, and they can be pretty solid. I'm not a really big cider guy personally. More of a beer and whiskey person, but
same.
I had actually legit the best hard cider I've ever had over the weekend. It was fantastic. It was very alcoholic and
because sometimes whenever I go down to Gator's house, I always pick up a case of Angry Orchard. It's pretty good for what it is. I enjoy it.
I remember when that shit first came out, and it was like, what is this? Actually, the first one I ever had was a 4, because I think it was Reds and Angry Orchard were the first two on the market, nationally. But prior to that, I used to drink Hornsby's. I don't know if you ever heard of that. But, it's a hard apple cider too, but it was I don't know, the first one I had ever heard of, and I tried it. And I was like, it just tastes like apple beer. It's pretty good.
Yep.
I'm so happy with where alcohol has gone over the past 15 years. And as our wonderful editor, Izlain, has inferred earlier, we're going to be talking about a beautiful deck that just came out, Arabella.
Yeah.
Arabella is a deck I know should be either B or C tier coming up in the future. We just need more data on it.
Cox, before we start getting into... Should we quickly read off what Arabella is, what she does, and why we give a shit about her?
Yeah, let's read off Arabella and to why she is the focus of our party today.
All right, Arabella, Abandoned Doll. For 1 red, 1 white, legendary artifact creature, toy. Whenever Arabella... she's a 1/1. Whenever Arabella, Abandoned Doll attacks... Oh, shit.
It's notable because, obviously, Bolt. But then, if you can give her any sort of 1 extra toughness, she's basically out of range of most removal.
When Arabella Abandoned Doll attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. So, of course, the ability, it's a sort of pinger aggro ability. But the one thing that always strikes me as interesting is that she's also an artifact. So there's all these artifact synergies, that you can build into the deck. So first of all, shout out to Izlain and the stream. You on your channel, the Possibility Storm. You had a stream last week with both Franklin and myself, and Puzzle, right? Shouts to Dallas.
It was basically a common theory games, right?
Yeah. Where you played this, and then what did you play? You played something that required. Oh, you played Galblast. I was like, you don't have.
No. It was Demand Answers was one of the ones that I found that was a hidden synergy that I didn't even realize was that good because Arabella got targeted, was going to get removed. I had no way to protect her, so I looked at it and I was like, well, I can cast Demand Answers, sack her at additional cost, draw the 2 cards, and win-win, awesome. Right? So, and that's kind of it's not a Grave Flicker, but it is kind of on that same level as like a Deadly Dispute. No, I don't get the extra stuff, but in response to losing a resource to gain resources is always going to be feeling a lot better than if you just lost the resource.
Yeah, it's not exactly losing. It's still trading, your creature on board who's going to do a whole bunch of damage for. You're not at least losing stuff. You're still drawing cards.
Yep. Really important in a deck where drawing cards comes at a premium, basically.
In Boros, that was something that I kind of tried to focus on a little bit because initially I just had mostly ETB creatures, like ETB draw card. I still have some of those, but we kind of looked at it and was like, okay, we need to add some thrills. We need to add in some of those, the more impulsive draws like the Reckless Impulse and whatnot. And then I did take the advice to add in, what's the new one? The Glimpse the Impossible, I believe it is.
Yeah, Glimpse the Impossible.
Which I didn't realize had such a good synergy with her to begin with.
Really
but
awesome
like
synergy.
The thing is, like busted. You cast the spells, you get the value, or you don't, and you still get bodies, which still helps out her trigger.
Yeah.
And they're also mana producing bodies, so that may help you out in some other sort of way. So I ended up cutting like one of the more generic pay X mana, get 3 tokens. I just cut one of those for that, and then it's like, we get a little pseudo card advantage, but we also get bodies potentially, so it's a win-win, and I liked that.
So then, real quick, before we get into the changes, let's maybe talk about the game plan.
So first, so what was it? What did you enjoy about Arabella? What made you look at this card and go, that looks super interesting. I want to build a deck around her.
I guess to answer that question comes in like multiple parts, in the sense that there was the initial conversation that we have all had collectively, but then separately in other individual conversations. But like basically, there's been a kind of a push that the rock paper scissors thing, that aggro needs to step it up and bring something seriously good to the table to try and combat just, the format becoming just all combo decks at the top and nothing else. Yep. The format needs to rebalance itself or re-stabilize, and a way to get that to happen is to introduce these other newer not new strategies, but just reintroduce these strategies so that they, sort of bring down the amount of combo decks, bring up the amount of this. We tried doing all of that with the mid-range stuff, and we've proven that those decks can be good, but they all struggle to close out games within time in tournaments. That's probably going to be the case for a lot of them going forward until we get the right cards printed. In other cases, like everybody knows, we're going to be playing, or by the time this releases, we may have already played in the next Sanctuary, and we are playing some of Severus, which is the main focus I've had for mid-range for a long time, and it again has proven itself to be a worthy deck in the sphere, but it hasn't proven itself as far as like getting a ton of like tournament wins or results. So, but yeah, so it was basically that conversation about how aggro needs to happen, and then we had been discussing whether or not we were going to play Severus or maybe Kedis Keleth or something else, and we'd all been talking about wanting to do something with either mid-range or aggro to kind of post some results. So this kind of became my I saw this, and it's not Kedis Keleth, because that deck can pump out, I think, more damage faster, but this is kind of on a very similar level, and then it provides different angles that Kedis Keleth does not. Also, just it's different than Gut Leader as well. Like it operates on this different axis, and because it's symmetrical, you don't have to worry about I have to attack everybody. You basically just can play out all of these cheap creatures, and then play Arabella and just make sure Arabella is protected, either by giving her evasion or giving her protection. And then you swing and you get her trigger. And like in some cases, like in the case of that example with Demand Answers, it didn't even matter if she died. She just, I get my trigger, we do the damage, I gain the life, Then I cast the thing, sacrifice or draw the cards. The combat damage doesn't happen. We move on with our lives. But in all the games I've played, the minimum first swing I've gotten with her has dealt 4 damage to the table. So that's 12 a round. And I've gained the 4 life. The average has been 6.
That's pretty good. Yeah, because the one beautiful thing about Arabella is that she triggers off herself.
It's turn 3 at like the latest that I'm doing that.
That's almost Dargo levels.
Right? I'm seeing it as that, like, and then also having just the addition of white to have the extra protection, the extra removal. We've even discussed the potential for, like, if we are running enough ETB creatures to, like, maybe add in some blink spells. I haven't done that, but it is a thing that we've considered. The main concept, I think, here is just trying to keep as many creatures under that 2 power, make sure that they have sufficient utility to them so that, like, playing them doesn't feel bad. Then at the top end of the curve, we've got a couple creatures that are the land cyclers that are, but they also have, like, anthem effects, so they can be good for a bigger swing if needed. There were some cards that we talked about potentially adding in to add more to the anthem effect, which could be good, but I've found that just having a wall of cheap blockers and using them to pump up Arabella's trigger and just focusing on protecting her has been really good. That's the initial idea, the initial brew. And then you basically said, I like this list. This seems cool, but where's the pingers? And because I was initially was only running Witty Roastmaster, the Molten Gatekeeper, which is a newer card, and Impact Tremors. Because I was just going based off of, I'm trying to make a bunch of tokens, a bunch of creatures on the field. I figure I'm going to get that ETB trigger damage off of those pingers, and that's probably enough. And in testing, it pretty much was enough, but it does seem to make it more consistent having added in the pinger package. And I think there's like, 9 of them or something? 8 of them?
Yeah.
That's quite
a large chunk.
Yeah, because I see the Flame Breather, was it the 2 non-creature spell ones? Unruly Catapult, I don't know, with Thermal Alchemist. Okay, I see the Thermal Alchemist now.
There's the Blister Spit Gremlin. There's also Gutter Snipe. I also have Suture Priest, which technically pings. So yeah, it's a lot, and it might seem like overkill, but I think it helps smooth it out because the turns you don't have Arabella, these things can be doing more damage, and the turns you do have Arabella, these are just adding to the overall damage output, and you're spreading it symmetrically with all of these. Period. The Impact Tremors ones and the Pingers and Arabella are all symmetrical.
Yeah, so I think what's great is that you brought up Callous Caliph, because that was a bit of a comparison that I was talking about when first talking about this deck, is that the math seems to be about right on just the amount of pumps that Callous Caliph builds for itself versus what Arabella is doing symmetrically to everyone. But the big difference is that you're sacrificing the explosiveness of massive pumps on Caddis, just like one-shotting a player, versus just sustained damage over time.
And I feel like that was a choice because of the nature of this commander. Because it's not a commander that you're really going to be pumping up. And it's not a commander you're going to try to give double strike. It's not a Voltron-style commander. It just isn't. It's a go-wide deck. For sure. And that's aggro. Aggro definitely is usually more likely to be, at least in like 60-card standard, etc. Like aggro is slamming down a bunch of cheap shit and swinging, right? It's not throwing down one big thing and pumping it up and then swinging. Although that can be.
Which I think is beautiful. But. Yeah, which I think is great because I know a big weakness for Callous Caliph is just eat of creatures. And I feel like with this, you don't have to worry about
because you don't
a Curse Marauder.
Right.
Well, and they're not also like you have a whole bunch of non-tokens.
Well, you play your Curse Marauder, and I'm like, okay, I sacrifice a 0-drop Kobold. That's a 0/1. I don't give a fuck about. So what's the loss? What am I losing? Nothing. And you're not. It's kind of the same thing as Abdel was, kind of one of the lists that was doing this, where it made a bunch of bodies and never cared about edict creatures. Same with TPI. Same with Gut, even to maybe a lesser degree. But there's a lot of decks out there that have that token strategy that don't care about edicts, and this fits right in with that.
No, unfortunately, because of a Curse Marauder saying non-token creature, that hurts so much.
Oh, sure, yeah, I forgot about that. But that's the good news, is that we are playing a lot of token creating spells, but we're also because those obviously synergize. They synergize with the pingers on cast, and then they synergize with the ETB ones on ETB. Then each of those are also contributing to your Arabella triggers because they're all low power toughness. So
Yeah, what I like about this creature package is that you've got a lot of creatures with more than 2 toughness.
because I only focused on power, basically.
Thick guys, yeah, which is actually awesome. So it's a little bit more. I think a lot of people, when they see Arabella, they're going to immediately be like, well, a board wipe just takes you out. You just lose, right? Like you're just not a threat anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I think that's not necessarily true if you build it in the right way. Like at the very least, after a wipe that's going to do 2 damage, you're going to still be left with probably at least a few pingers or a couple walls. You're going to have, and Arabella herself, like you're going to have probably still like 3, maybe even more creatures on board. That's still not bad.
Which is amazing.
There's a good amount of creatures that'll survive an electricity 2, or anything else like that does the one damage across the board. The 2 damage, admittedly, it's going to kill mostly everything, but there is some stuff that lives.
Yeah, it'll kill all your tokens for sure.
That too.
Although, Rohan, there is a very interesting artifact creature that I just saw you hover over, which I think is a new include, the Crashing Drawbridge.
I added that one in, not like recent, but that was like second draft. I added that in. That one I picked myself, but then Rohan also pointed out the Tuk Rebel Fort as something I should probably throw in, and I agreed. We just wanted a couple ways to be able to slam Arabella. Like if you had a turn 1 into a dork and one of the 0-drop kobolds or something, so you already had 2 out, and then on second turn you want to throw down that Crashing Drawbridge, and then third turn throw down Arabella, activate to give her haste, go in for the 4 ping on everybody, and still kind of do it all on curve. It seems to be helpful. I haven't actually gotten a haste enabler out yet, but it hasn't really mattered. I think it's just good to have, also because you might drop a triplicate spirits and want to be able to swing for 3 in the air real fast.
It may be worth replacing actually one of these kobolds with a Phyrexian Walker.
So I had that in the deck as well, on top of all of those, but then I eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, I want to cut one of these, and I just picked one. But the 0-3 body is probably a little better. You're right.
Yep, and the Walker can be sacrificed to artifact synergy cards.
True. One last couple of creatures. Just the main one I wanted to talk about was the Pathmaker Initiate. That was another Rohan suggestion. It's like middle row.
Yes.
I had already packed in like Escape Tunnel and a couple. Obviously, Protection works and other gradation things. But Escape Tunnel, if you're not familiar, is basically a do-nothing land that you play, and then it can be either sacked to go tutor up a basic like in the Evolving Wilds, but it has an extra clause where you can sack it to give power 2 or less creature unblockable, so you can get in with your Arabella to make sure you get your pings. The Pathmaker Initiate can do this over and over again, so that was a cool thing. We thought of a couple others that are obvious things, but
I think is another one.
Yeah, that was another one too, where it's like almost every creature in the deck is power 2 or less, so you're likely to get some card draw off of that. Yep. It also counts itself. Literally, the only creatures with more power than would count are the 3 at the end. It's the Witty Roastmaster, which obvious reason we included it anyway, and then the other 2.
Yep. Oh yeah, and Standard Bearer, I think. I don't know if you had that in there.
You did. I did. Yeah, you suggested that as well as another protection piece.
Yep.
Yeah, is this a nice little protection piece in there?
It stops all the top tier combo decks get stopped by this one card.
Yeah, stops the auras, stops the type changers.
Yeah.
Stops some of the blinks.
Let's check out the sorcery package. Of course, lots of things to make, guys.
The initial thought that I had was just trying to make as many bodies as fast as we can. I cut down on it a little bit. Some of them we gotten cut. We've kept basically what I thought were like the best ones.
The best.
And the reason they're here now, I mean, besides just making the bodies, but they also synergize with several of our other pingers. So it's just additional damage over time. And attrition isn't like necessarily the best strategy. I can say that from experience with playing other pinger decks and playing Sivrus a lot. When attrition is your game plan, it's slow going. And the thing that I liked about this deck is that it feels like it could be done a lot faster. And that's just the feeling I had. And then in testing, it truly does just go faster. It, like I said, average is 4 to 6 damage on the first swing with Arabella, which is usually turn 3. By turn 6, 7, you're presenting lethal. If nobody removes her and you continue to put more bodies on the board, which has been my experience so far.
And that's 4 to 6 per player, right?
Correct. So it's like it's 12 damage to the table in one swing. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's not counting if there's other pinger type decks
right.
at your table, which if we're talking like competitive match, there's the chances are that you'll have at least one other player playing.
Right. Well, during the
some
stream,
kind of ace.
Punks was playing Sivris. Didn't end up getting much in the way of drain in the couple games we played, but still could have potentially been doing the alley-oop thing.
Yeah, and that was a funny thing that you bring that up, because I remember in the stream you were saying, "Oh, hey, I'm pinging." Yeah, which is one of those funny things with like just politics with this deck. Because have you seen that come up recently of just people not wanting to remove your commander because you're assisting so much in pinging down and hurting the table?
Nobody's verbalized that, but I have noticed that she doesn't get removed. Like I said, there was that instance where I found where it was like demand answers is this great answer for her getting removed. Outside of that, she just doesn't really get removed.
That's interesting, right? Especially, at a table.
Oh, I should take that back. There have been bounces. That's been the most common thing that's happened to me. Is it's got bounced to hand, then I have to replay it, and then summoning sickness. So it is kind of a time walk. That's actually worse than removal, almost.
Pauper Winota.
Right? Yeah. It hits the board, it disappears, you're like, fuck. All right. Try again.
Yeah.
Fuck. Try again.
Yeah. Every time I play Winota, I'm like, fucking bounce spells.
No, that, again, Winota is the reason to why I phrased you moving to combat in that such weird way. I was like, yep, I pass on moving to combat. At the beginning of the combat, bounce it.
But yeah, there's actually I'm seeing a bunch of draw spells in here now too, right? The impulse spells, reckless impulse, run resolve. You mentioned glimpse the impossible before.
Yeah, the phase looting. Yeah. I guess the only other notable interaction in that package there is the late to dinner. I think it's cool because it synergizes with those land cyclers that are just above. Where you have one of those early on, you pay the 1 mana, you cycle it, you get your land, and then later on you draw this late to dinner, and you go, I'm going to slam this 6/4 on the field for 4 mana instead of 6.
You've got like a little mini reanimator package.
yeah, it's not much. I could be running more. I know there's recommission and other cards too, but I didn't feel that anything else I had was really providing all that much value to make it a big deal.
Yeah, because if you're not running into issues where people are constantly removing Arabella, then you don't need to side them in. I think just a single Jolted Awake is already doing numbers alone because it reanimates majority of the deck.
Right.
And it's a cycling card as well, so if it's dead, it's never dead.
It's never dead.
And that is why it was pointed. I don't remember who pointed it out to me, but when it was pointed out to me, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, this looks really good. It seems like you have a lot more gas in the deck now.
Yeah, that's always the first pass. It's always like, okay, I have all these ideas, and then everything's fighting for spaces, and then you get to a point where you narrow down the slots to where you're like, okay, now it's got focus. Now what am I missing? And I always have to test. Like, I can build a deck in a 30-minute sitting. Just sit there, slam it together, easy. But then it's the playtesting, because after 2-3 games, you're like, okay, I see some glaring holes here, and I need to patch them up. And then you do, and then you just keep going. And then
speaking of holes, that need to be patched up.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead. You're
well, I was just gonna say, and then you get extra eyeballs on it. I shared the list with you. Other people that are interested in it, they go and they're like, okay. And then even last night, prior when we were waiting, somebody was lagging, and while we were waiting to get started, and I was having a conversation with Lotad and a couple of the other guys on the Sanctuary server, and they were like, "Yeah, we want to see it." And so I showed them, and they were like, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And I actually ended up making, I think, a couple more changes, but I don't recall exactly what they were. That's kind of the deck building process for me, and I think that is
I think
the deck building process that works for most people.
Yeah, I think that's especially in the competitive world that we're in, I think that makes a lot of sense. Where you take your first pass, and then you kind of like workshop it in like a small group, and then you kind of you keep playtesting it, and then you kind of workshop it with a bigger group and get some more opinions on it, and then you take it back to the farm, tinker, and then replay it.
Yeah, especially playing over on Sanctuary, where you just have like some of the best brewers in our format, especially Lotad.
But here I think we're at my favorite section. This is what I was hoping to see. I'm seeing so much more interaction in your instance. You want to talk about some of the updates that you made here?
Although I personally do like main decking Pyro, was Pyro and Red Blast. I think that's super spicy.
Mm-hmm.
I am a CEDH player, so I run them in every deck of thread because that's what you do.
Okay.
And also that they're as much as I hate how narrow they are still very flexible cards. And blue is still a powerhouse no matter what the format is. And this is either a counterspell hitting your shit, it's a counterspell stopping someone from winning, it's a way to blow up a troublesome blue permanent. They're modal in a way, and they cost 1 red mana. It's like such an easy hurt.
Yeah, stocks go up on those cards. The more competitive your table gets,
For sure. Yeah, playing those in casual, you're probably never going to use them. But
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
maybe
you will. You're pitching them for the thrills.
Sure. Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's true.
So I mean, my initial instant package was protection and or more ways to build, make more bodies or anything like that. And then it was just adding in some spice, so to speak. I was doing I had Mana Tithe in here, and I was doing Dawn Charm and some other stuff that, they're cards that are weird, but they're modal.
They're cute.
They have their uses. But then I found other options or was suggested other options, and then realized myself, like, somebody was like, "Where's your Scred?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I didn't do that." And then it's like, okay, I didn't even put Thunderclap in. Okay, and then I had it's probably like 3 or 4 extra protection spells, and then I just cut it down to the ones that were like, okay, this one draws me a card. This one, like Apostle's Blessing, actually was, had it have been in my hand, would have saved me from a Aether Spell Bomb. So I'm like, this definitely needs to be in the list because it's the one thing that can stop that. So and then Prismatic Strands and other obvious answers.
Yeah, I think you only need so many fogs between Comedy of False Hope and Strands.
Yeah, I have Safe Passage as well, just because it is one of those things where you can attack and then just save yourself if you need to.
Stops board wipes. Also stops any kind of like double striking Dargo hit. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, you can just block it and take no damage and not care.
Yep. Or if someone's trying to sink infinite mana into a single spell, try to murk the table with like a big fireball.
I mean, that's also why I included the Thraven Charm, because it's just like this weird modal spell that I never really played with, and I was like, I gotta test this thing. And
that card is
I've actually found it to be it's pretty good. It's
insane.
Pretty good.
It's a bonkers card.
And because I am building such a big board, it's like an obvious this is a good removal spell.
Yeah, it just kills everything.
Yeah. That's my favorite Pauper card of that set.
Yeah, I was gonna say between the Scred and Thraven Charm, you should be able to just target anything and kill it, regardless of how much toughness it has.
And that was what I was going for, is finding the most efficient and reliable removal spells. I mean, a Braid is one of those ones that I go back and forth on. Like, I love a Braid because it's modal, but how many times do I really need to destroy an artifact? Probably not that many, but having the ability to have both options is good, because 3 damage is still the premier amount for the most part. You still want to be trying to kill most things that have 3 butts, so in that regard, I almost put in the galvanic glasses, or not galvanic, whatever the one is, that newer lightning
discharges.
Yeah, I was going to run that too, and then I was like, well, a Braid has that. You think it's better than a Braid? Maybe
I would recommend Heated Debate over a Braid.
Sure. Uncounterable.
Yeah.
Uncounterable matters.
It's such a blowout.
That's a thing.
It's an insane blowout.
I've been high on a Braid since it got printed in Amonkhet, so that's just me showing my age. But also, it was such a good. It's just such a good card, and it kind of that template is what's been used since.
It's a super cool card. I also love a Braid. It's like always my 101st card.
You might be right on the Heated Debate, and again, this is still investing and tweaking. So there's always that discussion on these 1-to-1s where it's like, what's really better?
Heated Debates like Power Blast and Reb. The stocks go up hugely. The more competitive your table is. So if you're trying to win a tournament, that card just blows people out.
Well, I've already gone on record saying this, but I'll say it again. If we hadn't already committed to playing Silvers, I'd be playing this in Sanctuary for sure. And
I probably would have joined you on it too.
I'm already going on record as to say that I'm playing this in the next tournament I play, no matter which one it is. And I'll probably be playing this a bit in Vegas as well. So I'm planning on putting it together in paper before Vegas.
Nice. We have a very small enchantment package here.
Enchantments, as I said, Impact Tremors is just like the Witty Roast Master. It's just the additional layer
Gotta have it.
Being able to do more symmetrical damage. The Sticky Fingers was the thing that I landed on as the last thing that I didn't cut, because I was running Beating Down Beat Stick, and like I don't remember which one it was, but some artifact that gave flying. It was just to give extra evasion for Arabella to make sure she can get through.
Oh yeah, the mandibular kite.
Yeah, one of those. And Beat Stick, I've always thought was good. Giving Menace is decent, and then getting the treasures on swing is cool too. But then Sticky Fingers is the same thing, but it's an enchantment, so probably a little harder to remove. You also don't have to pay the equip cost, so it's slightly cheaper.
It's a little faster.
Yeah, it's just
a little faster.
Yeah.
And then, if your shit does get removed, you draw a card. So, I mean, not bad. The other are just flash speed enchantments that are basically just the same as the protection spells, but they hang out. So that's why they're there. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Just more additional synergies that we've already kind of discussed.
I think that all that makes sense. The lands, I think, make sense. You got Escape Tunnel in here, like you mentioned before.
Yep, along with the Evolving Wilds and what's the last card?
Terramorphic Expanse.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a new art that I'm not used to.
Yeah, it's new art.
I'm surprised you're not running Opal Palace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best with CPDH land bases yet. And yeah, I can see that one being added for sure, because that's just an easy, okay, I have to recast her. Now she comes in a little bit bigger, harder to remove again. So yeah, great. And that's something that's easy to swap out for one of these basics. Otherwise, it was just basically some fetch lands for fixing, because sometimes you do get in those weird things where you're like, I'm playing mono red. And here's Evolving Wilds, and then go. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the Escape Tunnel's there for that extra, like, we need a land now, or this is just a free swing for Arabella to see what we do. But yeah, land bases in this format you have those little flex slots like Opal Palace and other things, but there aren't any real. I don't find that there's any real like rhyme or reason or staples to any of this. It's basically run your basics. Maybe you run fetches, maybe you don't. Maybe you run duels that come and tap, maybe you don't. And it's pretty much all there is to it, outside of flex slots and, like I said, utility lands. So Escape Tunnel I've never played anywhere, but this is like the deck that makes the most sense for it for me. So I was like, cool. But otherwise, I probably would never play that card. So those kinds of slots, I don't have the depth of knowledge, I guess, of like common lands that you might want to play. I obviously know about Opal Palace, but just something you overlook. Can't remember every card every time.
Generally speaking, I think it's a lot. I think people generally run too many tap lands.
I agree.
As a whole in this format.
I'm on one here, thankfully. The fetches count as tap lands, I guess, but like also fixed. So it,
sure. You can probably swap out one of the fetches for like Boros Garrison. Because this deck can afford it.
However, I haven't found the need for the ramp either, because the curve is so low, and we're on an almost even split on mana.
It's less about ramp, right? Because Garrison is it's more card advantage. It's just like a +1 card.
Sure, I get that. Yeah. It's not bad.
Yeah, I
don't mind the cruise.
It pays for Arabella by itself, technically.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, it's a fine consideration, and I usually run more other lands than just these. I think I just kind of slap the mana base together, not really caring, and get everything else.
Yeah, and if you haven't run into any issues, then it's perfectly fine.
It's very generic, but it's been doing what it needs to do. But I can see your suggestions, like cut one of each basic and then put those lands in and call it a day. Because we're on the whites at 44% and the reds at 49%. So it's almost an even split in color buy.
Yeah, and
mana production is exactly even. So like there's little to no variance.
Because you have a 2-pip commander, one of each color, 50-50 is good, because that way.
If she was like those colors and one, I think she kind of tanks a little bit as far as being. Oh yeah, she's still good, but it's just like so much harder to cast her.
Yeah, no, the 2 CMC is really critical.
But again, for sure. That's usually perfectly fine. Just fill it up with basics, put in Command Tower if you need it, because you're running 2 colors, put in any of the snow duels that you need, or, the 2 duels with the basic land types that were afforded in this format.
Every deck's going to have its little bit of nuance, right? Because, like, if you look at, like, I run the Sivir's Cloakwood, because Sivir's has a clause that says tap, sack a creature or artifact, I run all of the artifact lands that it can run.
Yep.
Because that makes sense, because they're sack targets if I have nothing else. And that's why Escape Tunnel is great here. But like those are nuances, and those are things that you find in your list after you've played it for a while and you go, oh, this is a cool synergy. Like, why did I think of that sooner? You know? So prior to this ban where Dockside and all the rocks went, people didn't play artifact lands in CDH because that's just one more thing that you're adding to the Dockside count. So like, why would you play that?
Yep.
The only one that we ever played was Urza Saga that added to Dockside because, well, you can't help it. But usually it's either gone before the Dockside hits or unfortunately, you fed it an extra one or two because you made a construct, maybe.
Yep.
So, but taking into the considerations of those types of things are going to help. But each commander is going to present its own unique build path. I don't know if it's just me or how my brain works, but whenever I see a new commander, it's like, okay, I read it, and then it's like, okay, this leads me down these build paths. It kind of creates itself in a way. If you know the format, obviously you have to have some knowledge, but
for sure.
Yeah, it kind of points you in these directions, and you explore those directions, and either it works or it doesn't, and then you explore new ones. But
it's still uncharted territory. There's still no definitive deck list, and that's perfectly fine. This card's only like, what, as of right now, 3 weeks old?
If that, yeah.
If that, yeah, barely. So, like, my next question for you, Izlain, is, like, now that we've kind of gone through the deck and we have an understanding of how it works and some of the packages that you've included here, like, how has it been playing out for you? Like, how have you been finding it? What do you feel like its strengths are and maybe some of its weaknesses?
So, I mean, I've kind of peppered that answer throughout this entire episode, but kind of paraphrase and bring it all back together. I was drawn to it because it's cheap and it's aggressive. And it's in arguably the best aggro colors in this format. I don't know if that's a hot take, but maybe not. But this is like, these are the the combat focused colors, right?
Yep.
Like they're here to make tokens, they're here to go fast, they're here to punch your face, and they're here to lose to every combo deck because they're slow. Right? So I mean, that's the problem. So how do we solve that? We make it faster, right? So you guys, maybe not you specifically, but people in the format, in the community have put in the work with Kedis and Kelith amongst, all kinds of other, I mean, I've tried to make aggro work several times already and have not made it there, but this is the closest that I found to it. And it has some of those analog comparisons to Kedis Kelith, Gut Leader, etc., where they're kind of on the same axis, doing maybe different things, but like the goal is still the same, to like crush people's faces as fast as possible. This one, besides anything with Kedis, is the only other way to do it symmetrically. And I think that alone kind of puts it on the same level or same conversational platform. I'm not going to say, because I have never played Kedis Kelith, and I have not really played against it too often either, so I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, this is better, or that's better, or whatever. And
I would say
I think there's testing that still needs to happen.
Yeah, playing against both of them, I'd say it's about the same, like it's a side upgrade. They both do very similar things.
Right.
Yeah. One of them is the Weavers to the Gretchen,
basically. That's probably the best comparison you could make as far as like a 1-to-1. This is pretty damn close. I'd say the only other thing that's, probably around the same is like Dargo Kedis, which is obviously losing a color, but probably maybe faster.
I think this is closest to Dargo Kedis, actually. In my opinion, from what I'm, looking at the packages of the things that are like how you're winning, like Dargo Kedis has actually extremely similar game plan, right? You have the same backup options where you could like either go ham by just kind of attacking, right? And Arabella is doing that damage differently than Dargo, but then
or you just go wide,
the same, or you kind of, well, it's not really just going wide. It's more like a pinger plan, right? It's like you get a bunch of pingers and you're playing a mid-range game, and you can you can get in some damage with your, your 1/1s and your 2/2s or whatever.
I found myself only swinging with the stuff that has evasion. So, like, the kobolds, they get played, and they're just there for Arabella value and to block, right? Yep. Anything else like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dargo Kedis is the same way, honestly. It's like the 1/1s in Dargo Kedis are part of your engine. You're not swinging with them because you need them to power the deck.
Right.
So, and I think that this deck works in a very similar way.
Yeah, I would agree. And I've played against that one enough to know that they are kind of a similar level. The one thing that deck does better, and probably Kedis Kelith also does better, is the ability to like pump up one creature to be able to swing for lethal on one person immediately. In the sense of like you can get to that 16 and dome one person, everybody else takes a 16, but they're still alive, and now you still got to deal with them. And maybe now you've now become the arch enemy, so you have to deal with that. This doesn't have that. Yeah. This doesn't dome anybody. It's just like everybody gets a little bit, and people sit there and they consider, well, how much is coming? You did that one day. Like you said, you were like, okay, yeah, I'll let it move to combat, and then now bouncer because I don't want to deal with this. And then the next time you're like, yeah, I'll let that happen. I'll let the trigger resolve, but then now I have, removal spell or whatever, right? So there are ways to deal with it, but at the same time, most people just kind of let it go. And I think that's going to lessen as people realize what it's doing. Because when you shit out 6 like little dorks, and then you're like, I'm going to just hit you for 6 across the table, and I'm at like I got up to 50 life in one game, and everybody's almost dead, and they're just like, well, we literally cannot do shit to you outside of trying to combo off and win. Also, notably, this kind of combats the Gretchens and the Weavers and the things that are combo decks that don't really play a lot of creatures because you get free swings. I swung at Gretchen. I swung at Puzzle playing Gretchen the entire game because it was just like, you're going to block with Gretchen. You don't take any damage off the commander, but you're taking the triggered damage anyway. So I'm just getting free swings. It's almost like, what was that mechanic from? Was it Amonkhet? Was like afflict or whatever, where it's like if it gets blocked, they take the damage, and it was always more than the actual power of the creature. It's kind of almost the same thing, but it hits the whole table on top of it. It's great. I don't understand how more people aren't already looking at this like this needs to get pushed. Honestly, in my testing, it's been like I think I've played probably 5 or 6 games. I've only won a couple of those, but that's still I think over 25%.
Yeah, that's still really good.
And I threatened win in every single game. There was not a single game where I wasn't like, you're at 10 and I'm at 40. Like, religiously. Like, you don't die. The only way you're dying is losing a combo or getting commander damaged out because somebody can Dargo double strike you. Because what other Voltron decks are out there that are doing that?
Yeah, none really. I mean, Satyr Enchanted doesn't really show up anymore. And you're just like, protection or fog. And now that doesn't even happen. So, like, we've covered the bases. I think that there probably are some slight tweaks. You guys did mention stuff in the mana base. The more eyeballs I have look at this, the more people might be like, here's random card from Onslaught you never fucking heard of that's perfect. Great. Yeah, speaking of getting more eyeballs on it, go take a look at the description. The deck list is going to be down there.
Yeah, it is a public list. I had it private for a while, but I did put it public. It's sitting around like 200 views or something, I think. So, I mean, like some people have taken a look. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that's trying to brew this or make this a thing. So far, it's been Ron was interested in it, took a look, gave me some advice. Lotad and a couple of other guys from Sanctuary took a look, gave me some advice. Gator took a look, gave me some advice. Gator was complimenting it last night when we were playing. He said he likes it a lot, thinks it's good, but maybe there are some tweaks that could be made to make it a little better. But that's every deck of the format, and obviously the next set gets printed, we get new cards, something is even better, whatever the case. But out of the decks that I've built since I got into this format that were Pauper specific, that were creatures I would say you would consider aggro, the only other one I built that I thought had any sort of, in concept, on paper, looked good was the Necrogen Rock Priest, which is that toxic. And I thought that would work, and I could always only kill 2 people. I could never kill the third person before I lost. Yeah. So
it feels like you just run out of stuff to just target.
Right. And you can always mark like 1 or 2 people with infect, and then the third person gets away. Or you get everybody marked, but then you can't proliferate properly, or whatever the case is, and then somebody wins with a combo. That's still going to be the same problem you're going to face with this. And that's why we've tried to include as much interaction and things that are going to protect your game plan, further your game plan, synergize your game plan, but also can have the pieces to stop known combos, yada yada. So there may be some other silver bullets that we may be able to add in that may need to be added in that I haven't thought of, but
but so far it looks pretty solid.
It's been pretty in performance. It's been solid, and I've played against. I mean, when I played you guys, it was Malcolm Breaches, Silver's Cloakwood, and then a Gretchen list that was,
and Gretchen.
Maybe not.
It's a weird Gretchen, but
creation, but he still was threatening wins left and right. So I mean, Gretchen is just Gretchen.
Yeah, it still did the Gretchen thing, so it's still good.
This got to win against all those tiered lists. So I mean, and it's played against other tiered lists. I think it's gonna. You said initial estimate BC. It's not a C. I guarantee it's not a C. It's a high B tier, if not low A tier, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Izlain, with that, one final question for you before we go: how many smiles per hour does this deck give you?
What the fuck fuck is that, dude? What is it even?
How many smiles does it give you every time you play it?
Bro, this does spark joy. Let's just say that.
There we go.
Then that's all we really need for like a good deck in this format, really. It's like, does it make you happy? Does it make people shit their pants? If it does both, we're happy.
So
Tell that to the Gretchen players.
That's the funny part about it, is that in the entirety of the last couple years, maybe a little bit more, that I've been playing Pauper a little more religiously. The decks that I've played that like were known quantities, like as much as I like Malcolm Kedis, like it's boring. It's fucking boring. I played that in CDH for a long ass time, and then I played it here, and I'm just And I've always been the kind of person that's like, I don't want to play the top end meta deck. I'm not playing Blue Farm. I'm not playing any of this shit. I want to play the stuff that's like a step below that, and then I kick your ass with it. I want to be the guy that brings that new thing to the table, and I've always kind of had that mentality. So we got recognition in CDH. I'm trying to get it still in CPDH, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I'm hoping this is Lorehold Apprentice Part 2, and maybe I'll be that guy, and y'all can interview me then. But until then, Rohan, we have to win with Sivris first.
Should be doable. All right, Rohan, take us out. I normally do the outro, but I'm Gator today.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks guys for watching. This was a shorter one, but hopefully a fun one for you, featuring some new deck tech, really hot off the press. And hope we're going to see this make some moves in the community and some tournaments. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Also hit that notification button. We go live typically on Mondays, so you'll know when we are coming at you with both videos. We also have shorts that we're running. Speaking of shorts, we also have a TikTok, so you should come check us out there at The Common Theory. Follow us on Patreon if you haven't already. We have
make sure you hit that support the editor button.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely support the editor. If you really want to support the editor, join the Patreon.
These guys aren't lying; they don't take the money; it goes to me.
Yeah, we do.
Go straight to our editor.
We don't make a dime. It goes to Izlain. It goes back to the community, back to you guys. And we have a lot of cool stuff coming for you. We have a bunch of interviews coming up on the horizon. We have some more deck techs coming at you. We have
might be talking about that Sivris list some more here pretty soon.
Yeah,
we should be. We will be.
We'll have a deep dive, on that for sure. We also want to play your deck. So if you become a patron of us on Patreon, you can submit your deck to us, and we will play your deck in tournament. And we will gather that data for you, and we will help you build your deck out stronger. And let's take your decks and make them meta. We want to do that. Meta decks are awesome, but I don't want to speak for the guys, but I think there's nothing more than we like seeing than an off meta deck become a meta deck, right? It's not always about meta decks.
I mean, I literally just said it. I do not want to play the top end. I want to make the new top end.
I mean, that's the dream, right? That's the dream. That's what we want. The dream. So to do that, the lists have to get played, though. Lists that people aren't playing need to get played and need to get played often. We need to collect the data. So become a patron, and we'll make that happen for you.
And with that, thank you everyone for watching. Have a great week.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Here's a shout out to all of our patrons: Eric Christopher, Aaron, Dax, Devin, Rohan, Little Rat Lotad, Kunks, and Scoob. Thank you everyone for all of your support.